In today's video, I will be ranting about one of the most important, as they say, international organizations, the United Nations, also known as the UN. The United Nations is an intergovernmental organization that aims to maintain international peace and security, develop friendly relations among nations, achieve international cooperation, and be a center for harmonizing the actions of nations. In basic language, they were created to resolve problems between nations. So, I will be looking at dissecting the United Nations, specifically the historical context, its purpose, its role now, and if we still do need a United Nations in this interconnected global society that we currently live in. So, on that note, hi everyone, and welcome back to another Jacob Rant. I am Jacob Rant, and this is my channel where I post original videos of rants, give personal advice, and provide intelligent content that questions social narratives and the world that we live in. Not only this, but at some point in the videos that I do post, I announce a new challenge for you to try in the comfort of your own home. It usually has nothing to do with the rants, sometimes it does. It is simply to give yourself a special break from your day-to-day routines. Whether it is a personal challenge, a practical challenge, or a physical challenge, it will always be a challenge that you will surely benefit from. So make sure you stay until the end of every video that I post and go ahead and subscribe to my channel and turn on the bell notifications to get my latest videos and challenges. And don't forget to pew pew that like button. Now, realistically, the UN really has no power, and that countries like China, Saudi Arabia, and of course the United States continue to do as they please with no consequence or reprimand. Whether it is the genocide going on in the Middle East and Africa, or the lack of suitable water in Michigan, or the current clashes between the people and the Chinese government, the UN has not stepped in to stop and help find a solution to these ongoing atrocities. Now, before I speak my mind, just so everyone is on the same page contextually, let's get to know the United Nations first. The United Nations, also known as the UN, is an international organization created in 1945, shortly after the end of World War II. It was formed by 51 countries in order to encourage resolution of international conflicts without war and to reform policies on international issues. Simply, the UN was formed as a peacekeeper in order to meet certain global goals and purposes, and these goals and purposes are very specific. The UN Charter sets out 4 main purposes. 1. Maintaining worldwide peace and security. 2. Developing relations among nations. 3. Fostering cooperation between nations in order to solve economic, social, cultural, or humanitarian international problems. And 4. Providing a forum for bringing countries together to meet the UN's purposes and goals. Now, before the creation of the UN, there was the League of Nations. No, this is not a Batman or Spider-Man type of Marvel or DC reference. It was called the League of Nations. Now, the League of Nations was established during World War I in 1919 by the Treaty of Versailles, which was one of the peace treaties adopted at the end of World War I. The League of Nations' goal was to encourage cooperation between countries and keep international peace and security. Unfortunately, the League of Nations failed to prevent World War II and therefore was seen as a failure. Wait, let me repeat that. The League of Nations failed to prevent World War II and therefore was seen as a failure. That sounds very familiar with what is going on today. So if the League of Nations was dismantled because it failed to prevent World War II, what does that mean for the UN when there are more people dying now due to war and violence than ever before? Does this mean that the UN has failed its purpose of maintaining worldwide peace and security? The answer is yes. It has failed its purpose of keeping worldwide peace. But does anyone care to hold them accountable? Are nations using the UN as a platform for advertising a global image? Or is it all just another exclusive club of leaders that's main goal is global control? Simply, the goals and purposes of the UN have definitely steered away from its original intentions. as they went from a peacekeeping entity to an organization that caters to keeping the powerful satisfied by turning a blind eye. Personally, there was a point in time where I truly did believe in the UN and their goal, and supported how involved they were in the most recent Iraq and Afghanistan war post 9/11. But once credible evidence started pouring in with what they were actually doing, I lost all hope for the UN. Many soldiers, UN peacekeepers, journalists, and photos emerged since the war claiming and showing opium fields being guarded and harvested by foreign entities, the looting and destruction of priceless and invaluable artifacts and resources, and of course the takeover of the oil field. Now, I won't get into the whole 9/11 conspiracy stuff, but to be frank, 9/11 was an inside job. It was used as a catalyst to create not only an excuse to start another war in the Middle East and surrounding countries, but also to usher in the Big Brother police surveillance society that we are currently living in, and unfortunately desensitized to it, as it has now become a part of our day-to-day life. And of course, there are still people out there who think 9/11 was not an inside job and was actually a terrorist attack by a bunch of goat herders with box cutters. And they cannot fathom the idea that their own government would kill over 3,000 citizens of its own for the sake of going to war. I mean, 3,000 deaths does seem a lot to a normal person like me and us, but if the government is so adamant in protecting and being there for their citizens, then why hasn't Michigan, yes, Michigan in the United States, why hasn't Michigan been able to drink their own water? And why are many parts of Louisiana still under a pile of mess after Hurricane Katrina, with little to no help or rebuilding of the state? And of course, the more recent tragedy, the forgotten tragedy, why was there no help to Puerto Rico when they had no electricity? And yes, Puerto Rico is an American state. It's not talked about, but it is an American state. And not only domestically, but also internationally as well. The globalists have killed millions in just the past decade over oil, natural resources, and power. So regardless of whether or not you believe 9/11 was an inside job or it was not an inside job, sorry to break it to you, but it was an inside job. Okay, back to my main point, which was whether or not the UN is still needed since it was strayed away from its purpose and has become a bought out and bullied entity instead of an independent global peacekeeper. And my answer to that is no. We do not need the UN anymore because the countries that have the capabilities of creating a nuclear or biochemical war are not fazed by the UN policies, but instead they use the UN as a mask for peace while continuing with their violence and genocide. And the countries that are incapable of keeping up with these wars are caught in the crossfire and endure the most losses, both economically and population-wise. So what's next? What should we do? We have no power to change this, so why should we care? Let's just live our life, man. Well, that is a fair point that many people have said to me, and my reply is always, I would love to be numb and ignorant to what is going on in the world. But once you get a taste of knowledge, it is addictive. And besides, would you rather be a gardener in a war or a warrior in a garden? And by warrior, I do not mean a physically chilled, sword-swinging warrior. I mean a mental warrior, a warrior of the mind, someone who thinks, questions, tries to find the truth. And the reason I say that is because society is not being controlled by tangible weapons. It is being controlled by the financial and spiritual weapons: debt, political correctness, mental health, genetically modified foods, family dynamics, schooling, taxes, etc. And with this form of weaponry, it is everlasting and it pits people against each other, ultimately creating a divide and conquer system. And this divide and conquer system for control has and will always be the main goal for every leader and nation, as it is simple and effective. And because the population isn't as aware and knowledgeable as they should be, they are easily manipulated and fall for the system. And this divide and conquer system is what the UN preaches through its actions, as it supports the powerful nations and turns a blind eye to what they do, but then adds sanctions to nations that do not have much power when they do not follow the UN's agenda. As a result, the UN's supposed power really comes from the leadership of other powerful nations, not the UN itself. Now, from many discussions with various professors, historians, and activists, it is clear that the UN's current goal is not to keep peace, but it is one of many organizations and entities that it is making way for a one world order, or a one world government, or a one world financial system, or however you want to call it. It is a world where everything is consolidated, from services to governance. Now, by analyzing a little harder at what is going on globally, you can see that the UN and similar organizations have strayed away from their original goals and plans and are catering now to the demands of the elites, and in turn adopting the divide and conquer system that has plagued nations and citizens for many generations. There is no fixing these international organizations as they've already been bought off, and the only solution to this is for people to be aware, rise up and take back what is theirs taken through illegal governance. The one world governance is coming, and there is no stopping it until we start waking up from the hypnotized state that we're in. And that leads us right to our challenge of the day. So today's challenge is, what's the beef? This challenge is connected to today's rant and requires a little bit more effort than my previous videos. I want you to either think about if you know, or write down a moment when you had to intervene into a problem between two or more friends or family members. What strategies did you use to create peace? Did it work? What was the outcome? I would love to hear what strategies you used and how your challenge went. So comment and DM me on my Instagram at another Jacob Rant. If you've made it this far, make sure you pew that like button and subscribe to my channel to see more original content. Again, also feel free to follow me and message me on Instagram at another Jacob Rant, where I'll post challenge updates, announcements, shoutouts, and giveaways. And also DM me with your rants, questions for advice, and even a shout out in my video. Details are in the description box below. So I just want to say thank you for making this channel part of your subscribe list. I appreciate each and every one of you, and I will see you on the next video. Stay ranting.